This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Get a 1-month free trial by following the link in the description and start learning a new skill from graphic design to cooking to animation today. I get a lot of comments on how I make my videos, so in this video I'm going to tell you exactly what software I use along with free alternatives. I'm also going to tell you exactly what equipment I use. This video will be split into 5 sections: research and writing, audio, illustration, animation, and editing and music. And they're in the order that I make the videos in. So, how do you make YouTube documentaries? Well, let's find out. Research and writing. Research is by far the most time-consuming process of making my videos. It can take weeks, and normally research tends to lead to more research. It's a never-ending rabbit hole of knowledge. Videos begin with an idea. I can either pick an idea off a long list that I have, get an idea from the comment section, or usually while reading something, a video idea might pop into my head. Once I have a topic in mind, I'll head to Wikipedia, since it has an article on just about anything. And at the end of each article, there's a bunch of sources. This is the actual gold of Wikipedia. I wouldn't trust Wikipedia as a source, but it's an amazing source of sources. Click these links or Google the names of the mentioned papers or books, and soon you'll be up to your eyeballs in information. You can also do a quick Google search for good books on topic, or my favorite, good books on topic Reddit. The internet is the greatest aggregate of information ever. If other people have already made a list of good sources, you might as well use it. Once I've found the books, I'll buy them or see if a library has them. If I was a criminal, I would use one of the many sites online that lets you download academic books for free. For further research, I will head to Google Scholar or JSTOR. This is where you can find academic research papers, which normally aren't the most fun to read, but they do have a lot of detail. Google Scholar is an amazing search engine. You can type in anything, like say ancient Egyptian dental health, and you'll get an infinite amount of papers on the subject you searched for. If you're in university, you probably already have free access to most of these papers. Otherwise, you're going to have to pay for them, or if you email the author really nicely, they might send it to you for free. People of a sinful and criminal nature would probably go to the many sites online that let you download academic papers for free. While reading books and papers, I pay close attention to their footnotes, references, and bibliography. They are usually useful jumping off points for further research. If I find a really good book, I'll search the author's name and see if they've written anything else on the subject. For example, when I was writing my video on the Sand People, I read books by a guy called James Soosman, and they were amazing. I searched his name on Google plus the word article and found dozens of articles that he had written, which helped a lot. If I read something on the Kindle, I'll use clippings.io to export all of the highlights I've made while reading. If I did it on my tablet, I'll use Zodo Reader, which has a built-in highlight exporter. Once I have all my research, I'll open a Google Doc and start writing. I always write with my thousands of words of research notes nearby so I can check them constantly. For example, this research document from my video on ancient China is 52,000 words long. It has direct quotes from books, random notes from me, pictures, maps, and an entire section just called Red Pandas. With my script skeleton in front of me, I'll figure out the key pieces of information I need from all of my research. So if I'm writing a script on Hinduism and I read one of the Vedas and highlighted an important passage, I'll grab that highlight, see if it helps explain the point I'm trying to make, and then I'll figure out if I just quote the passage or if I summarize it in my own words in order to back up my explanation. I like to put little footnotes in my scripts as well, so later on I can see where I actually got that information. Every point must be backed up by research and sources. I simply rephrase what the sources say. A lot of the time, research notes that were thousands of words long turn into just one sentence. We recently brought in a researcher/writer that has really helped this whole process. We were incredibly lucky to find someone as talented and intelligent as we did. It has improved our videos by 1,000,000%. Look, I made a graph that proves it. Once the script is written, it's usually way too long, by like several thousand or tens of thousands of words. This is when the cutting process begins. My entire goal here is to make every single paragraph or line shorter and clearer. I'll slice through the script, cutting out whole sections, which is painful until it's just a few thousand words too long. Then I'll bring it into an app called Hemingway Editor, which you can use for free online or you can pay to use it on your desktop. This app highlights long, complicated sentences and wording. Using this, I rewrite every sentence until they are short and as clear as possible. After weeks of researching and writing, I'll have a script that floats between 2,800 and 4,000 words. Because I animate everything, I need the scripts to be around 20 minutes or shorter, because otherwise it would take forever to actually finish a video. Once the script is done, it's time to storyboard it. A storyboard is just a series of really quick sketches to let me know how every scene needs to be animated, and what scenes or characters I'm going to need our Illustrator to draw. What I do is create a huge table in a Google Doc. One column has the script, the next column has a description of what will happen on screen while I read that part of the script. I color highlight everything to make it easier and so I can see if there's too much of one kind of animation. My colors are for 1. Animation, which is like the traditional kind of 2D scenes with characters. 2. Motion graphics, which is when I animate words, graphs, anything that's not character based. 3. Maps, which is for maps. 4. Images, which is for images. And 5. Stock footage, which is, is for stock footage. When I'm creating my storyboards, I'll go to websites like Pinterest, Vimeo and Behance to collect some visual inspiration. I'll save all these shots in a free program called PureRef and use them as reference for creating my own scenes. Once the basic storyboard is done, I'll do a very basic visual storyboard to see if things work. Sometimes I'll use an amazing piece of software called Storyboard, which is free, where you can sketch out each scene with the narration in the box next to it. Or I'll just do something quick in Photoshop. These are just really rough sketches, and sometimes I just write words or even just stock footage when I'm feeling lazy. Here's an example storyboard from my video on beer. Audio. Once the script and storyboard is done, I'll record the narration. I do this after the storyboard because sometimes I think of a scene while storyboarding that could be improved by narrating that scene differently. I record my audio on the Shure SM57LC microphone. It cost €105. I bought it because apparently the audio quality from this microphone is the same as microphones double and triple the price. You do need this expensive piece of equipment called the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 to make it work, which costs €149. You plug the microphone into the magic box and it makes my voice appear on the computer. Why do I need the box? I have no idea. I'm not a sound scientist, but if you don't have the box, the sound doesn't work. Before I had this kind of expensive setup, I used a $100 Blue Yeti, which you just plug straight into your computer. My amazing wife built this recording box for me to improve the narration quality. I place the microphone in the box, put the box in the wardrobe, and then I yell at it.
What up? It's your boy Cogito. Don't forget to smash that like button.
If a video is 20 minutes long, the raw narration for it is about an hour or longer because I'm super not eloquent. Once I have that audio, I cut out all of the different takes, the mouth clicks, the nasty breath noises, and then throw on some effects to make me sound cooler. I do all of my audio editing in the program called Adobe Audition, which costs money. I'm subscribed to a thing called the Adobe Creative Cloud, which costs around €60 a month. This subscription gives me access to all Adobe products, which I use for everything. Audition is for editing audio, After Effects is for animating, Premiere is for video editing, and Photoshop is for image manipulation. I didn't always have this. When I started out, I used Audacity to record and edit audio, and that's free and really good. Both Audition and Audacity have tons of tutorials online. They're easy to learn. Illustration. Once the audio is done, I start illustrating all of the assets that I'll need for the video. This includes characters, props, backgrounds, and little icons. Before I did all of this by myself, but for the last video and for future videos, I have hired an extremely talented illustrator to help out with some of the illustrations. To make my illustrations, I use Adobe Illustrator, which costs money. But when I started, I used Inkscape, which is free. You can draw everything with a mouse. I did for years, but a drawing tablet will make life a lot easier. Now I use the €350 Wacom One, but for years I used the much cheaper $80 Wacom Intuos. Adobe Illustrator is different to say Adobe Photoshop or the free alternatives Paint or GIMP. Photoshop is raster based, which means it draws with pixels. That's why when you draw something in a raster program and then try and make it bigger, it gets blurry. Illustrator uses vectors. I don't know what that means, but if you make a vector drawing, you can simply resize it to any size and it stays sharp. That's why I use vectors for my videos, and most motion graphics you see will be vectors as well. Kurzgesagt is entirely drawn in Illustrator using vectors. You can make anything in Illustrator using basic shapes. You don't need to be an amazing artist to get good results with this program. I know this because I can't draw, but I can use Illustrator. Here, I'll make a character to show you how it's done. A circle for the head, a tapered square for the body, straight lines for the arms, another tapered square for the legs, and a rounded square for the feet, some ovals for the eyes, some rounded lines for the eyebrows, and the exact same thing for the mouth. They're all extremely basic shapes that anyone can draw. I have a whole library of character assets here that I can dress them with. I label every layer with a clear name because when I bring this character into After Effects later on, the layers will appear as they were in Illustrator. So being organized at the beginning will save you a lot of time later on. If I need to edit a real image or photograph, I use Photoshop, which costs money, but GIMP is free and is a really good alternative to Photoshop. I usually only edit images when I want to cut something out or make a cool fake 3D effect. To do this, I use the lasso tool to cut every part of the image out that I'll need to move, mostly the foreground, midground and background. I cut them out, put them on their own layers, and then I use the content aware fill tool to fill in those empty spaces. This tool is magic. I have no idea how it works. I can then bring those layers into After Effects, click this little 3D box, move the layers in 3D space, plop in a camera, and now you have a fully 3D photograph. Animation. Okay, so here's the second most time consuming part of the video making process. I animate everything in this program called Adobe After Effects. It is an extremely powerful and extremely frustrating and awful slow program. But I haven't found a replacement. Like the rest of the Adobe programs, it costs money. But when I started out, I simply used Google Slides and just recorded the slideshow. Other free alternatives to Adobe After Effects are Cavalry and DaVinci Fusion. I haven't used them, but I have heard good things. Like I said, After Effects is a pretty slow program, so you'll need a decent computer or laptop to use it. For the last few years, up until last year, I used this laptop to animate everything. Now I use this PC, whose name, by the way, is ERP. And ERP has all of these parts. Adobe After Effects looks scary and complicated, and it can be, but you control it essentially using three things: keyframes, layers, and effects. That's it. Let's make a ball bounce, for example. First, you make a composition, which is After Effects version of a scene. I make my compositions 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames a second, but 24 is normal for animation and 30 is normal for video. Let's make a nice background by double clicking on this rectangle tool, and then I'll give that a nice color. Now we make a ball using the same tool but switching it to a circle. We'll hold down shift while we drag, which will make a perfect circle. All we have to do now is click on our ball layer, twirl down to its properties, click on this stopwatch on the position property, which will create a keyframe. Keyframes are the start and end points of animation. If you keyframe a ball's position layer here and then move ahead a few frames and put another keyframe here, it tells After Effects to start moving at this moment in time and end at this moment in time. We can add a few more keyframes to give this ball a little more life, tweak this composition a little bit, and all of a sudden I have an okay looking animation. If I don't like the color of the ball, I can change it here, or I can go to Effects up here and then click on Fill, which adds an effect that fills this layer with a new color. So that's how After Effects works: layers, keyframes, and effects. For my maps, I use an After Effects plugin called Geolayers and have for years, but it is very expensive. Before that, I made my own maps. There are tons of free maps on Wikipedia that you can download and then customize in Illustrator or Inkscape. I have a giant vector map with every single country in the world cut out. If you want to download it, it's up over on my Patreon. For my cogitos, I have a complicated rig setup that I've been tweaking for years. I have all sorts of controls for small details like winks, surprised faces, blinks, arm over body transitions, and I use a good amount of code to handle some of this. I also use a plugin called Limber, which costs money, and this handles the arms and legs. This plugin just speeds up the process so I don't have to animate every single elbow and knee bend. You can use a free tool called Do It, which is very similar. To make a cogito wave, all I have to do is select the wrist, keyframe it, make some more keyframes as I move it back and forth, and now he lives. Once I'm done, I render everything out as a PNG image sequence. I do this because an image sequence saves every single frame as one picture. So if After Effects crashes, which it does a lot, I don't lose everything and I just have to render from the last saved picture file. Editing and music. I use Adobe Premiere Pro for video editing, but when I started I used Kdenlive, which was but it was free. Another alternative to Premiere Pro is DaVinci Resolve, which is free and apparently very good. I don't actually have to use this program much because as an animated channel, most of my editing is actually done in After Effects. In Premiere, I mostly just tweak some colors, add some transitions, reorganize the scenes slightly, and then add sound effects and music. I use Epidemic Sound for music and sound effects, but Kevin MacLeod has a bunch of free music on his site, and he is essentially the soundtrack for most of YouTube. I add whatever sound effects I think will sound nice, I lower the volume so that they're not super annoying, and then the music I also lower to around -28 decibels. I want the music to be there, but I don't want it to be overwhelming. Once I've done all this, I go to export and I render my video. These are the render settings that I use. I'm not sure if they're good, but the videos look okay, I assume. Add all this together and you've got an educational video. All of the tools that I showed you today are pretty complex, but with a little bit of effort you can master them. I started off making videos that look like this. The only way I progressed to make videos that look like this is by following tutorials and courses. Skillshare was a huge boost to my creative abilities. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes and creators. Members get unlimited access to all classes, so you can explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in an almost infinite number of new things to learn. If you're just starting out, then the Beginner's Guide to Adobe After Effects will save you months of work. And this class, Animating with Ease by Jake Bartlett, pushed my animation skills light years ahead of where they were. The great thing about this class is that the files and assets are free for you to download and learn from at your own pace. On Skillshare, Mike Boyd can teach you how to learn any skill, Ali Abdal can teach you how to be a productivity master, and dozens of people can teach you how to cook, draw, animate, garden, build a business, and much, much more. In less than 1 hour, you could pick up a new creative skill. Skillshare is designed specifically for learning, so there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Within that 1 month, you could finish both Animating with Ease and the Beginner's Guide to Adobe After Effects, and you'll be animating like me in no time. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If this does help you or inspire you to go make your own YouTube channel, I really look forward to seeing what you make. Let me know if this is actually useful and I can make more videos like this. If you are interested in supporting the channel, there are links to my Patreon and merch store also in the description. Thank you so much for watching and bye.